After 20 years in the Vietnam jungle, blind Army veteran Nick Parker strolls into a diner and orders a taco, but instantly some thugs decide to mess with him. One guy offers him hot sauce on his taco but dumps the entire bottle, thinking he's got Nick. But Nick simply tells him it's not hot enough. They then turn their attention on a girl, bullying her by throwing her bag around, until it falls to Nick's feet. Nick picks it up and the thug demands it, pulling out a knife and underestimating the blind man. Nick fearlessly approaches the men, then acting oblivious, he accidentally takes them all out with his cane, displaying skills a blind man should not have. Nick isn't just any ordinary man. He's actually a highly skilled Vietnam veteran. It was just a few years earlier during the Vietnam War Nick suffered a severe injury to his eyes after enduring a mortar blast. He calls for his comrade and best friend Frank. But without his sight, he simply drifts further and further into the forest. He is soon captured, but his captors turn out to be friendly local villagers that nurse Nick back to health. Among the villagers was also a highly skilled sword master, who took pity on Nick and decided to train him to hone his other senses and to master the blade. After a few months, Nick himself became a master of the blade. Present-day Nevada, Nick's friend Frank is being held by his feet at the top of a skyscraper by casino owner and crime boss McCready and his henchmen, threatening to drop him unless he agrees to continue creating synthetic drugs for the syndicate. Frank refuses to work with them any longer, so McCready promises to pay his wife and son a visit in Florida.
Oh, please! This guy created a little job open.
Meanwhile, Nick gets to Frank's home and meets his estranged wife Lynn and his son Billy, but learns that Frank no longer lives there. Lynn invites him inside and offers him coffee, and little Billy quickly learns that Nick may be blind but far from impaired.
You're Mr. Parker. Nice to meet you.
Lynn can't believe she's talking to Nick, as she attended his memorial after he was reported MIA. A lot of things have changed since then, like Frank divorcing her and working now as an organic chemist in Nevada. Just then Nick hears men approaching the door before they even knock.
Somebody at the door.
Lynn goes to answer when two cops barge in looking for Billy, secretly working for McCready, claiming he's a witness to a crime. A third man they call Inspector walks in, but he is actually McCready's lethal hitman Slag. He demands Billy, but this is where Nick intervenes, trying to talk them down. He asks for a warrant, but Slag is done playing around and grabs Lynn. Billy tries to help his mom, but Slag ends up tossing him aside before shooting Lynn. Realizing these men are dangerous, Nick reveals the blade hidden inside his cane. Nick refuses to stand aside, and when one cop tries shooting, Nick cuts off his hand, then cuts down the second cop with swift slashes. Slag just can't get the upper hand on Nick despite him being blind. So he decides to escape and dives through a nearby window. Nick goes back to Lynn, who is dying from her injury. She then urges him to take care of Billy and bring him to Frank before passing away. Nick rushes with Billy to a bus station, trying to give him every reason why he cannot see his mother again. He starts throwing a tantrum, but Nick promised Lynn to keep him safe, and that's exactly what he will do. The bus soon heads out, but Slag has them in his sights. Frank is being held inside a small room, where he sees news reports of his slain ex-wife and his missing son. McCready allows his girlfriend Annie, who works in his casino, to bring him some items. Frank still refuses to cooperate, worse after seeing what happened to his ex-wife and son, but Annie warns that McCready always gets what he's owed one way or the other, so it's best he cooperates. Nick's bus stops at a rest stop during heavy rains. Nick is on his way back to the bus when he slips and falls. Billy starts mocking him until he falls face first into mud, so Billy gets the last laugh. They hit the road once more. Billy thinks Nick's asleep and goes to look inside his wallet, but Nick catches him. Inside, Billy sees a photo of Nick and Frank. He realizes Nick could see back then and asks what happened. Nick explains that during their final moments in the Vietnam War, their firebase started being shelled by mortars. Frank and Nick were picked to take out the enemy mortar team, but unfortunately they walked right into an ambush. During the gunfire, Frank abandoned Nick and ran away, leaving him to his fate. Billy is disappointed hearing the story, and Nick tells him it's fine, but it's obviously affected him. The bus makes another quick stop. This time Billy rushes to a nearby payphone wanting to call his mother until Nick stops him. Billy is confused as to why he can't call his mother, so a reluctant Nick finally breaks the news to him. Unable to accept the news, Billy dashes off into a nearby cornfield. Nick goes after him, using the faint sounds of the breaking corn to follow Billy. As he gets closer, suddenly Billy is grabbed by Slag and dragged off. Also in the cornfield are armed thugs prowling for Nick, but Nick soon picks up their sounds, from their heavy breathing to one thug eating popcorn. Slag throws Billy into a shed, and Nick hears his screams and starts moving toward the sound. Two thugs prepare to shoot, but Nick hears their guns and swiftly cuts them down. He then causes another thug to shoot his own partner. That thug tries running away, but runs right into Nick's blade. The thugs soon realize that they are not the hunters, they are the ones being hunted. Slag is laying prone on top of the shed when he spots Nick's hat and opens fire into the cornfield, not realizing he's being toyed with. Using the diversion, Nick gets close to the shed and causes it to collapse before cutting down Slag. He then rushes to a scared Billy, who is glad to see him. They then continue their journey on foot, Billy riding on Nick's back. Slag has survived though, his body armor stopping Nick's fatal strike. In Vegas, MacReady desperately needs Billy captured, so he can force Frank to get working. Turns out he's deep in debt to a crime syndicate, and if he doesn't get the cash, then it's over for them.
I don't want to hear about this blind man!
Slag isn't working fast enough, so he demands that his partner Ed get him someone else.
Get me Bruce Lee!
Nick and Billy make camp for the night. Billy is still broken up, but Nick does his best to cheer him up, reminding him a strong man is never afraid to cry. By tomorrow they'll be in Vegas. Billy doesn't think Frank even wants him,
Doesn't want me.
but Nick reassures him any man would be proud of a son like him. The next morning Billy is still fast asleep. A bug keeps buzzing around him, so Nick expertly slices it in half. They hitch a ride to Frank's address, but there they meet just Annie. As Nick enters the room, a thug, Lyle, knocks him out with a pistol. As it turns out, Annie has set them up. With the help of his brother Tector, they throw both Billy and Nick into the back of a van, gloating how they beat Slag. Nick has a plan. Billy's too scared to move, but Nick warns that if he doesn't brave up, they will both die.
What do you want me to do?
Billy gathers the courage, follows Nick's instructions, and manages to get his bound hands in front of him, then grabs Nick's lighter. Lyle realizes Nick's cane is actually a sword, but when he cuts his finger on it, he tosses it out the window. Nick hears the sword fall, so he tells Billy to start counting. They start a fire inside the van, and when the brothers pull over, Nick takes them out with Billy's help.
Who's gonna drive?
Annie decides to switch sides and drive them, so Nick has her turn back, following Billy's counting until he gets to the spot they tossed his cane. Meanwhile, Lyle and Tector hijack two old women, barely escaping after one of the hags pulls a gun. Billy finds the cane, but the brothers have caught up with them and start shooting. The three race back to the van, but Annie loses her glasses. Unable to drive without them, Nick takes the wheel with Billy navigating him. They get back to the city.
Holy shit!
But the brothers are still on their tail, opening fire at them. Nick blows a red light, giving them the lead, but Billy ends up giving him wrong directions, and they turn into oncoming traffic. Annie and Billy hold each other for dear lives, but Nick is having the time of his life, no sight, no fear.
Just like riding a bike.
Billy flips the brothers off, so they start ramming the van, but end up crashing into a parked car.
Maybe I should get my license again.
Annie brings Nick and Billy to a friend, Colleen. Nick plans to leave Billy there for his safety, but Billy doesn't want him to go. Nick promises he will be back, and he is the man now, so he needs to be strong and protect the women. Nick turns up at MacReady's casino. There he overhears MacCready talking with Ed about Frank. They need to show him proof of Billy, so he will continue working, or they may need to just get rid of him and find someone else. Ed makes his way to the penthouse with security guarding the door, so Nick comes up with another plan. He goes to play a game, and using his skills, he keeps on winning. Another dealer then steps out to take over the game, but Nick hears something beeping inside the man's pocket. He places his bet anyway and loses as expected, so Nick slashes the man's pocket open, revealing a device to rig the game. The revelation sends the crowd into a frenzy, so while the guards are distracted, Nick accesses the penthouse elevator, fighting off the guards before they can enter. The guards, along with Lyle and Tector, report to the men in the penthouse before also making their way up. Nick disguises himself as a waiter, fooling the guards there for a quick second until they catch on to him. Nick plays it cool, but in a split second, he takes out both the men. He hears the elevator coming up, but quickly disables it, leaving the men stuck inside. Ed is in his office when Nick enters, demanding Frank's location. Ed tells him to F off and takes out his gun, so Nick slashes off his eyebrows, warning he also does circumcisions. Ed hands over a key to Frank's room, so Nick knocks him out.
Headache.
When he enters the room, Frank is shocked to see him.
Nick Parker?
Then his shock turns into joy, realizing his friend is still alive. They have a lot to talk about, but for now they need to escape, as Billy is waiting on him. Seeing his chance to leave his past behind, Frank takes his finished product, sets the lab on fire, then they evade the incoming men and escape the building. They take a cab back to Colleen's place, but when they enter the RV, they are greeted by Colleen's dead body and no sign of Billy or Annie.
They've got him, don't they?
Just then the phone rings and Frank answers, only to hear MacCready on the line. He confirms that he is both Annie and Billy, and if he wants to see either of them alive again, he should bring the product to the Winter Haven ski resort at dawn. By morning, the two get to the ski resort, but Frank plans to put up a fight and has prepared Molotov cocktails. He always thought Nick was dead and had always blamed himself and carried the guilt with him. Nick understands, and despite the fact that his life took a drastic change, he has made peace with himself and really wanted to find Frank to let him know he forgives him. When the lift gets to the resort, MacCready's entire crew opens fire, ripping the carriage to shreds, but when they come to check, they find it empty. Frank and Nick have slipped out and into the resort, but there they run into Lyle and Tector, who open fire, and they take cover.
Come on!
They prepare their weapons, but when Lyle steps from behind cover, he walks right into Nick's blade. Tector still tries shooting Nick, but shoots his brother instead, but Lyle refuses to die alone and shoots Tector dead. Ed and the other men soon find them there and open fire, pinning them down, but just like in Vietnam, Frank runs away, leaving Nick to fend for himself. He tries crawling to safety, but unable to see where he's going, he keeps bumping into items. He ends up among some musical instruments, and the noise he makes gives away his location, and soon he finds himself surrounded. Suddenly, the lights go out. Ed's men open fire, taking out some of their own, but Nick has disappeared. Now they're in his element, and Nick begins skillfully taking out the men. Meanwhile, Frank keeps chucking his Molotov cocktails and explosives into the room, keeping the men disoriented while Nick continues cutting them down mercilessly. Ed tries using a human shield, but Nick gives him that promised circumcision before eliminating him. MacCready's buyers walk on their deal since he can't get rid of one old man. Frank and Nick blow their way into MacCready's office to find him holding Billy and Annie at gunpoint, forcing them to disarm themselves and Frank to place the product on a nearby table. At that moment, a swordsman assassin enters the room, hired by MacCready to take out the lethal Nick. Without warning, the assassin launches his attack, and though he gets some punches in, none of his sword strikes will land.
Japanese, huh?
The assassin has a grin on his face, thinking this will be easy until Nick slashes his leg. The The assassin then tries swinging and attacking, but Nick slashes whatever he's attached to, and he falls into the hot tub and is electrocuted. Suddenly, Slag shoots Nick in the arm, but Nick throws the sword into his chest. The persistent Slag yanks the blade out and starts going for his gun, but Nick grabs the assassin's sword, and the following strike is so strong it sends Slag flying through the window. In the end, Frank, Billy, Annie, and Nick are about to board a bus to San Francisco, but Nick decides not to join them at the last minute. Billy races to him as he is walking away, begging Nick to join them. Nick tells him it's time he started building a connection with his dad, urging him to go back to the bus before disappearing. Nick wanted to hide his tears, but he gathers himself and hits the road once more, just another drifter. Thanks for watching. If you had a good time, go ahead and hit that like button, drop a comment, and of course, subscribe for more recaps just like this. And hey, don't click away just yet. YouTube thinks you'll love one of these 2 videos popping up right here, so check them out next.